Hello and welcome everyone to Riot Gaming's weekly news roundup, where we talk about whatever made the most noise in the last 7 days. My name is Alex and I will be your host. Today we will talk about the Atari VCS retro console new shipping dates, Mafia Definitive Edition being delayed, the Nintendo Treehouse livestream that they hosted this week, and the potential price increase for next-gen console games. So starting with the Atari VCS shipping dates. Everybody probably heard once or twice in the last 3 years about how whoever currently owns Atari wants to join in on the trend of re-releasing old consoles in smaller and modernized fashion. To give a bit of a backstory to this, back in 2017 during E3 we saw a teaser for the console, and pre-orders of the console were expected to begin by the end of the year but were delayed. The pre-orders began later in May 2018 exclusively through the fundraising page on Indiegogo, and the shipping date was expected to be somewhere in 2019. And must I say, people went nuts because they raised over $2.25 million in just the first 2 days. And in the beginning of 2019, Atari announced that they have to delay the release date to the end of the year. But in October 2019, closer to when everybody thought they will be having their console, Rob Wyatt, who was the lead architect for the project, resigned over 6 months of unpaid invoices. One other funny thing is that after Wyatt announced he was leaving the team, people went onto Reddit to ask about the state of the development and whether they were going to get the console or not. But Atari went on and took down those posts. Thus, the trend of delays continued until March of this year when the pandemic hit and they had to delay it again. So, the console comes in 2 versions, the Atari VCS 800 system that has 32 GB of storage, an equivalent of a USB driver worth a couple bucks might I add, and 8 GB of DDR4 RAM. It is also known to operate using a custom Linux OS. And there will be another version, the VCS 400 model, that will have 4 GB of RAM. The base console with nothing except the console will cost $280 for the 800 model and $250 for the 400 model. The controllers separately will cost you $50 for the classic joystick and $60 for the modern controller. You can also purchase everything in a complete bundle that includes the VCS 400 console, the classic joystick and the modern controller at a whopping $390. Just as a comparison, around the same price you can buy a PlayStation 4 Pro these days by just checking Amazon. As for the current delivery date, for those who pre-ordered on Indiegogo, it is set for October 2020. Next up, we have the Mafia Definitive Edition delay. Back in May, 2K and Hangar 13 announced the remake of the first Mafia game that had been originally released back in 2002 for the PlayStation 2, the original Xbox and PC. But this week, on the official Mafia Trilogy Twitter, they released a joint statement notifying the players that the game will be delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In the tweet they say, Mafia Definitive Edition will now release worldwide on September 25th, though we'd originally planned to release the game 1 month earlier on August 28th. They go on to say that finalizing the project in these circumstances became increasingly challenging and that they do not want to compromise the quality of the project. They explain that for them it is a passion project and that many of those working on it had worked on the original Mafia and want to deliver it in the best shape possible. But it is not all bad news. The developers announced that on July 22nd, they will give us an extended look at some gameplay, and right now you can go over to their YouTube channel and see a short 15-second teaser. In other news, just on Friday, Nintendo hosted a Nintendo Treehouse Live where they showed gameplay for the new Paper Mario the Origami King and Bakugan Champions of Destroya. So, starting with Paper Mario, they showed the new story elements the game is going to revolve around. The Paper Mario world is being slowly taken over by the new villain, the Origami King. He is folding up all the paper inhabitants into origami, and Mario is basically trying to stop him. The gameplay will remind people of previous games. For example, like in Color Splash, you had to color in white spots scattered around the world. This time you collect pieces of paper to fix holes that were torn by the enemy minions. The combat in this game is ring-based. When you engage in combat, Mario is placed in the center of an arena while the enemies are scattered around him on rings that are segmented into tiles. In the first phase of your turn, you are solving like a mini puzzle. You use different directional controls to rearrange the rings and tiles to place the enemies into patterns, depending on what kind of attack you are planning to use on them. The better you do that, the more damage multiplier you will get. When it comes to boss fights, the playing field flips. The boss is in the center of the arena and Mario has to rearrange the rings and tiles in such a way that he safely reaches the boss in the middle and deals damage. All in all, the game is very similar to the previous ones, the design is good as usual, and the game is crafted with loads of Easter eggs and secrets to find. But for some people that might not be enough to sell them on the idea of playing another Paper Mario game. Paper Mario: The Origami King will be available just in 1 week on the 17th of July. By the way, exactly when Ghost of Tsushima will be out, and we will be streaming it here on the channel, so stay tuned. Nintendo also showed a new Bakugan game, Bakugan Champions of Vestroia. For some it came as an interesting surprise, and some were just like, is Bakugan still a thing? You can guess which one was my reaction. Basically, this game is broken up into small open-world-esque locations that are mostly empty, with the exception for the occasional NPCs you will be meeting and brawling with. The battle system looks like they are trying to make it seem more dynamic, but it essentially boils down to running around the field and collecting Baku cores, which are like energy sources, and throwing them at your giant transformed Bakugan fighting in the center of the field. When you collect enough energy, you can command your Bakugan to use one of 4 equipped abilities to deal actual damage to the enemy. Why I say actual? Because in between casting actual abilities, they just stand there in the center of the playing field, playing awkward animations pretending to fight. So, in the end of it all, let's be real. The game feels outdated even for a small Nintendo Switch game. The animations are awkward, the characters' faces are static, and the dialogue seems not to even be voiced this time around. Now, another big conversation topic this week is the whole discussion about next-gen game prices increasing. So last week, 2K released a convoluted chart of their pre-order program for the next NBA 2K game. And in that chart, people saw that the next-gen versions of the base game will be priced $10 more, at $69.99 US. This has obviously sparked concerns for many gamers and journalists, since this creates a potential precedent for other companies to go on and do the same thing. This concern is justified, but it just might turn out to be a false alarm and actually even backfire for the franchise. If we look at the data from any sources, the major and relatively major video game companies are on the rise, with increases of up to 12% in their margins over the already existing year-to-year profit. If we talk about NBA 2K, here I pulled up a last year article from GameSpot called NBA 2K19's microtransactions are incredibly popular despite controversy. Now, in the article, they report some numbers that show us just how much really Take-Two earns. Back in 2019, the recurrent customer spending growth rate for NBA 2K19 was 140%. The purchase of virtual currency, add-on content, and in-game purchases was up 31% and comprised 58% of Take-Two's total net revenue, which amounted more than $300 million for the period. So the idea itself that the video game industry is strained and bursting at the seams, unable to pay the bills or sustain its operations, is out of the question. When we consider price increase, we should not forget to look at the actual sources of revenue for the gaming companies. Where do they get the money from? The price of games itself has not risen for many years now, yes, but the business practices of these companies have changed dramatically. Anything that is being lost because of the stable $60 price tag is compensated by many other factors. One of the first and most obvious things is that every game is now released with optional special edition, gold edition, ultimate and collector's edition, which can go up and above the $100 mark. Then we have the invisible elephant in the room. Game development cycles are adopted to create extra content that is not included in the game. This content is then being marketed as expansions and DLCs that further enlarge and enhance the player's experience in the game. And then this allows the companies to sell season passes and battle passes, which also benefit them as it increases the retention factor and keeps the game in players' minds for prolonged periods of time and creates a seemingly increased value for the game. And of course, microtransactions. Even single-player games such as Assassin's Creed have cosmetic and progression microtransactions in them. Not to speak about multiplayer games like Overwatch and their loot box systems. And in this case, we talk about NBA 2K people. They are even being at the center of the spotlight now for having their microtransactions displayed as an actual in-game casino. They're not even masking it up, and children playing this game end up spending actual money on actual slot machines. But don't get me wrong, expansions, DLCs, season passes aren't a bad thing. There are games that actually get them right. And the games as a service concept is an appealing one, since it potentially prolongs the lifespan of games we love, but only when it's done right. Even microtransactions can be justified as a business model if the game is free to play. And that brings us back to the idea of price increase. From a development standpoint, there is no guarantee that the additional revenue from the price increase is actually going to go to the developers and help solve crunch problems, extend development cycles, etc. And from a business standpoint, we also know that companies have developed, changed and adopted so as to be not only sustainable with a stable price of $60, but also be profitable and increase their profit margins. This video game industry is one of a few industries where the buyers are not only consumers that consume, but also have a leverage that allows them to dictate the rules. And at the end of the day, people who love playing video games are people who possess emotional intellect. That which creates a unique ecosystem of people who care about the art, the tech, and the people behind the entertainment medium. And we shouldn't forget about this. So thank you guys for tuning in today. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more videos like this one. This was Alex, see you next time.